Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the Avexia webinar series. Our topic for today is From Chaos to Calm, Aligning Your Life with Optimal Well-Being, Part 3. My name is Christopher Chu. I am the Director of Marketing for Avexia Diagnostics and will be your host for this webinar. Today, I have the distinct pleasure of being joined by an exciting guest, Emmalee Thompson, who will be our presenter for this webinar. Emmalee is a registered nurse turned holistic practitioner. She owns a remote practice where she focuses primarily on serving women of childbearing age, highlighting the importance of fertility and refining what health should look like among young women. Emmalee is also the creator of Integrative Metabolic Wellness Academy, a certification program for nurses desiring to lead the sick care system for a fulfilling career in holistic wellness, where she teaches metabolically focused nutrition, supplementation, and functional lab interpretation. Within IMW Academy, she also trains her students on her unique form of wellness coaching, alignment coaching, which involves assessing a client's often overlooked lifestyle factors that could be contributing to the states of disease. Emmalee lives along the Emerald Coast of Florida with her husband, 2 children, and 2 dogs, where they spend much of their time in the ocean, on the beach, and pursuing their dream life. Without further delay, I will now turn the webinar over to Emmalee.
Hi, and welcome to From Chaos to Calm, Aligning Your Life for Optimal Wellbeing, Part 3. In Part 2, and maybe in Part 1, I discussed how I decided to call this series From Chaos to Calm because if you are a practitioner watching this, you've probably recognized that we have kind of this epidemic of individuals who are stuck in a sympathetic nervous state. They're just stuck in that fight or flight, and they can't seem to move on from it. It's really a sad place to be. We see a lot of adrenal fatigue, a lot of adrenal burnout. And I think that there's a reason why past the standard diet and supplementation that we often recommend. So I'm here to talk about that. Before I get started though, let me do a quick introduction. My name is Emmalee. I was a registered nurse. I left the hospital in 2021 to pursue holistic wellness full time. I'm also a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. I utilize and teach on GI map, Dutch functional analysis of blood work, and HTMA. And I'm also the founder and creator of Integrative Metabolic Wellness Academy, which is a certification program for nurses who are looking to leave their career in the medical system for a full-time career in holistic wellness, as I myself did. So within the program, I teach on those functional labs and also my specific modality of working with clients, which is kind of a mixture of a pro-metabolic and bioenergetic approach, along with some other foundational type of lifestyle factors that I kind of work into my standard of care. So in Part 1, we discovered what I consider to be the missing piece in a lot of holistic wellness, which is lifestyle wellness, things like gratitude, love, joy, laughter that a lot of people are missing in their life, even when they're doing, quote, all the right things. And then in Part 2, we covered passion and purpose, which I also think is a huge missing piece and can have tremendous implications for physical wellness. So I work with my clients a lot on that as well. In Part 3, we're going to talk about another area that I think is hugely overlooked, especially in the holistic wellness space. And sometimes I think the holistic wellness space actually perpetuates this problem. And that is mindset and how it impacts our physical well-being. So before we get into this, I want to share a quick story with you. And if you're familiar with the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza, you may have heard this story before. But here's a really quick story of the man who died from nothing. So in the 1970s, there was this guy named Sam. He was having difficulty swallowing. He went to the doctor, and long story short, he was diagnosed with metastatic esophageal cancer, which back then, really, there was no real treatment for it. It was just kind of comfort care until death occurred. So per his physician's recommendations, he had that cancer removed from his esophagus and stomach with the goal of just extending his life as much as possible. And then eventually it was revealed that the cancer had spread even further. His liver was just eat up with cancer, and he was told he just had months to live. So he ended up relocating and seeing another physician. And the physician asked, what he could help do to extend this man's life. To make his life better. Like, what was his goal? And he said, if I could just live until Christmas, like I just got married to my new wife, and if I could just spend Christmas with her and her family, like that would be enough for me. And it was October at the time. So the doctor was like, you know what? We can do that. We can get you through to Christmas. So when he had originally come to this second doctor that he saw, the second physician, he was like on his deathbed. He looked very ill. He had lost a lot of weight, very just like that sunken in near death look. But he was discharged from the hospital and he actually looked even better than when he arrived. And he actually remained in good health from October to December, which was like unheard of for his for where he was in his cancer journey. And just an interesting little tidbit: his wife, his first wife, and the love of his life, had died not long before he had kind of started developing symptoms of cancer. He had ended up getting remarried very quickly. But he said that it was the love of his life, and just he really changed. Like, he didn't have anything to live for, going back to like mind body connection stuff. So basically, he got admitted like the day after Christmas to the hospital, and he was looking very near death. But the doctor couldn't actually find anything wrong with him. He just had like a mild case of pneumonia and a low-grade fever. But he didn't have anything that should be causing him to be as sick as he was. So the doctor was like, all right, we'll try to, figure out what's going on with you. And he ended up dying within a day. And it's a sad story, but the crazy part is that the hospital autopsy revealed that his body actually was not riddled with cancer. There was just a tiny spot on his liver and a tiny spot on his lung, and there was no evidence of cancer in his esophagus, and definitely nothing that could have killed him. So if he didn't die from like esophageal cancer or liver cancer or the very mild case of pneumonia, what killed him? And according to Dr. Joe Dispenza, who a lot of my work is very heavily influenced by, he can be quoted saying he died quite simply because everybody in his immediate environment thought he was dying. His old doctor, his new doctor, his wife's family, everyone thought he was dying. And so he died. And that's just so crazy. But if his thoughts truly had the power to kill him, because everyone thought he was dying, he thought he was dying, perhaps we should take our own thoughts a little bit more seriously when it comes to our physical health. So, was this an isolated event? And the answer is absolutely not. This is the reality of the placebo or the nocebo effect. So the nocebo is a placebo that has a negative impact, with a placebo being an inert substance that has a positive impact. There are countless cases of fake surgeries that heal people, drug overdoses of sugar pills that cause physiological change in the body, long-term depression being caused or cured by like a miracle drug that's literally just a sugar pill. We've seen it over and over again, and the answer is very clear that the placebo effect is a very real occurrence that can cause physiological changes in the body. So why are we not making mindset work part of our standard of care when it comes to holistic health and wellness? I love this quote from Dr. Joe Dispenza: your personality creates your personal reality. And this occurs through a couple of different mechanisms. But the reason I started looking into this in the first place is because a couple of years into my practice, I started noticing that the clients who thought that they would see incredible change through the work that they did with me, the clients who were on my wait list and they were waiting specifically for me, even if I referred them to other people, they would say, no, I know you're the one that I need to work with. I will wait. The clients who were like, I know that this is the answer for me, they would pretty much always see incredible, kind of miraculous change through working with me. On the flip side, the clients, and I haven't had very many of them, but the clients who generally were just like dissatisfied with their lives, they almost always saw the least amount of change or no change, and were much more likely to be unhappy with their results. And why? Why is this? This is why I started looking into this. It's because they created the outcome that they believed would occur. So I actually started changing the wording a bit on my intake form to kind of filter out the clients who have this kind of negative mindset, who are expecting the worst because they create it. And this occurs for a couple of different reasons. So the kind of short answer here is perception, prediction, comparison, resolution, and reinforcement. This is the process that the brain goes through to interpret the data around us. So the brain receives sensory input from the environment, sight, sounds, and it makes a prediction based on past experiences or existing beliefs. The brain makes a prediction about what it expects to perceive, regardless of what it's currently perceiving. Comparison occurs. The brain compares the incoming sensory input to the predictions that it's made. And if the input matches the prediction, the brain reinforces the belief or understanding. Resolution occurs if the brain resolves the mismatch. It can adjust the belief or the model, but a lot of the times, even if the data, the perception coming in does not match the prediction, the brain will kind of make adjustments to create this matching effect. And then this is reinforced over time as this repeated matching occurs between predictions and input. It strengthens the brain's confidence in these beliefs. So this is sometimes called confirmation bias. This is the tendency to seek out and interpret and remember information that aligns with our existing beliefs and ignore or kind of dismiss contradictory evidence. This helps our brain maintain a sense of stability and coherence in understanding our environment and understanding the world, but it also hugely limits our openness to new ideas that might counteract what we know to be true. And then predictive processing. So the brain operates like this prediction machine that's constantly generating models of the world based on past experiences and past sensory input. And it compares those predictions to incoming information. And if the input matches the expectations, of course, the brain reinforces these existing beliefs. And if there's a mismatch or prediction error, the brain either adjusts the model or, more often, dismisses the discrepancy. We pretend we didn't see it, and we continue kind of reaffirming this belief system that we have. This is why people who have a negative outlook tend to seemingly have bad things happen to them all the time. And people who have a positive outlook kind of seem to have good things happen to them because you see what you're looking for. So the motivational speaker, I know he doesn't like to be called that, Tony Robbins, though, has this exercise where he says, okay, look around the room and remember everything that you see that was brown, and then close your eyes. How much brown did you see? Tell me about it. And the person says, oh, I saw this and this and this and this. And he says, okay, don't open your eyes and tell me what you saw that was red. And usually the person's like, I didn't see any red. I wasn't looking for red. And he says, okay, open your eyes. Do you see anything that's red? And there's red in the room, obviously. But he's like, you didn't see it because you weren't looking for it. But as soon as you start looking for it, you recognize that it's actually all around you. Our brain is going to look for what it thinks to look for, and it's going to seek out information that confirms what we know to be true. Now, interestingly, as a tidbit on this exercise that Tony Robbins does, he says, now, when you were looking for brown, I bet you called things that were beige and tan also brown because you're looking for brown. So you want to find information, sensory input that validates what you're looking for. And all of us do that all the time. You see what you look for, and your clients do too. Your clients see what they look for, and this can cause physiological change in the body. But the truth is, to change your personal reality, you actually do have to change your personality. So to change your physiology with your mind, you have to be able to change you, especially if you're stuck in a belief system that is showing you all of the negatives around you. Your body's falling apart because you expect it to fall apart, because that's what happens when you age. I mean, we can apply this to so many things. So here's the real question. Do we need an external source to make an internal change? If Sam from the story died because his mind, decided he was going to die, he believed he was dying, did he need an external source to make that change? We don't. We actually don't need an external source to make the change, but we often believe that we do. So if we have this ability, why aren't we using it? And I have a theory. So the one reason would be that our mind is always going to choose safety and familiarity over foreign and new, even when it's killing us. This is a survival mechanism, going back to that confirmation bias, looking for what's familiar and what you know versus something new that changes your mindset. But additionally, I believe that there's another reason. And this goes back to our job as practitioners. So perhaps as a society, our mind-body connection has become so damaged that regardless of what we're told, we are incapable of making this change without some kind of external validation. So, do we need that external source? Absolutely, we don't need that external source, but we believe we do, and we don't have that mind-body connection that can actually help change our physical body. So what is our role as practitioners if our clients are actually capable of healing themselves? Like, if our clients are actually capable of creating all of their own healing, what do they need us for? And this was a great question that one of my students asked me, because I was teaching a more in-depth lesson on this to them. And she was saying, like, if we believe this, if we believe that our clients have the ability to heal themselves without us, with their own minds, then what even is our job? What are we doing here? And the answer is going back to what I just said. As a society, our mind-body connection has been severed. Our role as practitioners should be to help our clients restore this connection. So why is this severance of the mind-body connection occurring? Well, obviously, one would be toxic exposures. We have tons of toxins coming into our body all the time that are going to alter the way that our body is able to perform. Malnutrition, secondary to processed artificial diets and just not eating like our ancestors ate. Constantly rushing or distracted living in that sympathetic fight or flight nervous system state is a huge cause of that severing of the mind-body connection, because our body's going to downregulate any of those small signals, and it's going to upregulate everything that we need in the case of an emergency. A sedentary lifestyle, just because we're not in our bodies, we're not aware of our bodies because we're not moving our bodies like we used to. Suppression of emotions. But I would argue that the biggest severance of this mind-body connection is an over-reliance of external inputs or external validation. So technology, social media, data-driven health tools. How did I sleep last night? Let me check my Oura ring. Now, I'm not anti-Oura ring. I'm just using this as an example. You don't even know how you slept last night unless you look at your ring, because you have become dependent on data to give you that answer. And I would say maybe perhaps the biggest, the medical system telling us that it knows our body better than we know our body, has convinced us that we actually don't have this mind-body connection. We don't have the ability to tune in and check in with ourselves. So how do we do this as practitioners? How do we help our clients restore this connection? I would say number one, and this is more of the foundational work that I do with clients, would be physical support. Our goal is to get our clients out of that fight or flight state and bring back awareness to restore this. And this is still very important. Although I have incorporated a lot of new things into my practice, this ultimately is still the foundation that we need to make sure that our clients have in place. So dietary changes, obviously eliminating artificial foods, consuming a nutrient-rich diet, reducing environmental toxins, connecting with nature, getting sunlight, resetting the circadian rhythm, physical movement, all of those foundational things that really are required for us to be in and aware of our body. And then also utilizing lab work to target specific areas that need support. I still utilize lab work with people. I'm not saying that I've gotten rid of that by any means, but this was the only type of support that I was providing for years before I realized that something was missing. So this is still hugely important. And this is really the basis, because if our body is not nourished, if it doesn't feel safe physically because it doesn't have adequate minerals, it doesn't have adequate protein to heal muscle and tissue, it doesn't have, the normal healthy diet. If someone's consuming the standard American diet, can they outdo that with their mindset? I mean, I'm going to say no, they probably can't, because your body needs to feel safe physically. But here's what I started adding in addition to the physical. This other support. So lifestyle changes, like we discussed in part one, especially a digital detox, getting rid of some of that noise that's coming in, passion and purpose discussed in part two. And then now mindset practices that I have started using with my clients to reestablish that connection. So we had that physical support in place. Clients are, they're eating right, they're moving, they're doing all of the physical things. We're targeting those nutrient deficiencies that we see on lab work. But also we start doing things like body scan meditation. Joe Dispenza talks a lot about this, working down from your head to your toes, checking in with every single area of your body, feeling those feelings that you feel there, becoming aware of those things. Breath work is a great way to help activate that parasympathetic nervous system and get us back into a place of rest and digest and awareness. Emotional body mapping, taking yourself back to those large emotions that you experienced and taking time to actually sit with them and see where you feel them in your body. This is a huge tool that not a lot of clients are ready for. Sometimes it takes a lot of prep work and a lot of foundational work, but it can be hugely beneficial for kind of tuning in with your body and how your emotions are being stored in your body. Creative expression is another one that a lot of people are living so busy in their lives and the constant running and the constant fight or flight that they don't have time to even express themselves creatively. They're not drawing, they're not painting, they're not doing pottery, whatever they can do that kind of brings back, and this kind of goes back to the lifestyle thing, brings back some of that creativity, can really help reconnect that connection because you're fueling that sympathetic rest and digest state. And then somatic therapy. I'm not a somatic therapy practitioner, but I know some basics. Typically I do outsource this, but it can be really helpful for clients that feel a lot of restrictions surrounding getting in their body and being aware of their feelings and their emotions and those changes that are occurring. So this is what I started incorporating that made a world of difference in my practice and my client satisfaction and my client results, and even physical changes seen on lab work. Now, before we go, I do want to make a quick note. The language that you use with your clients matters. So going back to mindset, I started being super intentional. And of course, if you're a non-licensed provider like me or a non-licensed practitioner, you already don't you want to make sure that you're not diagnosing or making diagnostic claims. But it's even saying like okay, you don't have Hashimoto's, like your thyroid is sluggish right now and we can improve that. If a client has been diagnosed, taking on that diagnosis as their personality, overly identifying with that diagnosis can be hugely harmful for them. And it goes back to mindset, right? Like, you have Hashimoto's, so your brain starts seeking out information to validate that. So I started becoming especially intentional with the language that I used with my clients, making sure that they weren't overly identifying with their diagnosis or even with what I saw in their labs. Oh, your estrogen's a little bit high. You have to be very cautious with that language because that over identification causes their brains to say, oh yes, this is what I'm going to see when I get my period because my estrogen is high. We don't want to create that confirmation bias or perpetuate it, make it worse because of the language that we're using. So anyway, I hope this series was helpful. If you're a practitioner and you have felt like there might be something missing from your practice or from your clients' lives, it's been life-changing for me and for my clients to begin incorporating more of this piece of the holistic wellness world. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Emmalee, for that informative presentation. Thank you all again for joining us for this webinar event. Until next time, from everyone at Avexia Diagnostics, stay healthy, stay safe, and we wish you all the best on your pathway to wellness.